The competitive 40K network presents Art of War. Art of War. Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of War podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we have a very different type of episode from the ones we typically do. Normally we cover tournament winners and people who place really well with unorthodox or exciting new lists and interview them, get to know them, their play style, their army list, and how it all works. That's not what we're doing this week. And the reason is, of course, because we've got a whole brand new game to look at. Warhammer 40K has just gone through a whole spectrum of changes. We're talking points changes in the Minotaur and Field Manual, Pariah Nexus new mission packs, balanced data slate, fundamental core rules changes, as well as specific army changes. You got the works. You got the makings for a brand new meta and a brand new set of armies. So rather than talk about some tournament that happened in a meta that no longer exists and missions that are no longer going to be played, I wanted to do something a little bit more current and with the times. This week, we've got my great friend as well as co-coach on the Art of War team, all-star John Lennon, here to join us. For those of you who don't know, John plays second in the World Championships of Warhammer. He has been on the Art of War team since its inception, and he is an absolute beast on the tabletop. Now, John and I have actually recorded a video which is available in the War Room, which is our subscription video platform where we have videos centered around helping you get better at Warhammer 40K. You can check the link, theworm.vhx.tv, for more info. But John and I recorded a video in the War Room, and that video is a candid conversation between he and I, basically going through all the changes to the Pariah Nexus mission pack, the secondaries, the primaries, the approach to Warhammer, and how it all changed. So we're going to go through and basically replay that conversation for you here in podcast form and share with you access that only a few people have, information that is not readily available to the public. This is a candid conversation between two pro Warhammer players breaking down these new and exciting missions for you. So if you want more content like this where you have access to the pros, check out the War Room. And this week we're only going to have a one-part episode of this show because there's just no point in going through the specific army lists or things that just don't even exist yet. But don't worry, folks. If you love the format, you love the show, you love getting interviews from people all around the world talking about Warhammer, we are going to get right back to that next week. So do not go anywhere. Without further ado, folks, let me just get right into the content.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting Art of War strategy session. In this video, Nick and myself are going to be discussing the new mission cards, the new Pariah Nexus, and after a couple games of hard-earned experience, how we think it affects list building.
Awesome, John. I'm really excited. We've played a bunch of games with the new mission deck and a couple of the new sisters and all that stuff, and I have so many thoughts. All the changes to them are like very subtle, but they add up to a lot, and they definitely will impact how you want to build your list and think about the games.
Yeah, and I think first take, both of us were, okay, we've read these mission cards. We're just going to play games like normal and see what happens. Yeah, that was my approach.
Yeah, learn the pain points the hard way.
Yeah, I will find out when it doesn't really matter. The stakes are relatively low inside the house.
Yeah.
But now we've each had a couple games under our belt. I think we can start to collect some knowledge. And this is kind of a clinic that we want to do. One, because we haven't done the two-person clinics in a while.
It's good to bring it back.
It's good to bring it back every once in a while. But this is frankly a conversation that we would likely have around a table while eating like lunch. Mm-hmm. But we thought it'd be a little bit more fun to just have it. We didn't plan this at all. We're just like actually just going to talk about these, kind of compare some notes, and talk about how it might affect your list building.
Yeah, so this is like totally can take on our thoughts, day zero, basically, after a few reps of the new Pariah Nexus missions on how to build lists and how to approach the new missions and what that looks like. One of the pieces of feedback you've given us as our War Room community is basically that you want these kinds of candid talks. So let us know more stuff like that in the comment section or in the Discord. It really helps us cater our content to exactly what you're looking for. If you like this style of content, please let us know. If you want to improve it in some way, please give us a suggestion. And if you hated it, we have thick skin. You can just tell us too.
Absolutely. All right, so let's kind of kick this off. I think we've both done tactical the whole time. What's your feel with the tactical deck so far?
It's lower scoring. It is not hard to just be able to score cards. That's kind of easy like it was before. But there is no capture enemy outpost for 8 or the coveted investigate signals for 8. There is a couple 6s, but they're rare and they're not easy to achieve the 6 on.
Yeah.
And in general, there's more actions. You have to have more action doers if you actually want to score points. It's not just stand in certain places.
Yeah, what I've noticed the most is that there are a lot more action secondary cards than before. There are less dead draws, but you have to. It's like you have more opportunities to score points, but you have to work harder to get them.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. I mean, let's just go through it, right? They removed capture enemy outposts, which is about standing in a specific spot, right? Taking your opponent's objective.
Yep.
Tempting target, literally stand in a specific spot. That's also gone.
Yep.
What else have they removed?
I think investigate signals got removed, then they added a different do actions in several places.
Yes, so that's kind of side graded.
Yep. I think they removed only those two. And then, because we have 18 now.
We have 18. They added a bunch
They added
more.
a few, and then a couple got like mildly tweaked.
Right.
Like investigate got kind of side graded into something else.
Right. So, what is investigate now? What's the equivalent?
So
is it the zone one? You're thinking?
I think of the zone one as being, I believe it's called. Is it containment?
Containment. Yeah.
Let's see it.
We got the cards here.
We have the cards right here. We are doing it this way. Not storm hostile, not bring it down, not call the horde, not engage. Recover assets is one where you have to do it 2 or 3 times. That's it.
Okay, so that's basically you. Wait, missed that?
Yep. So if you want to read that out.
Okay, so this is basically you divide the board into 3 zones: your deployment zone, no man's land, your opponent's deployment zone. You do an action in each zone with a unit. So to get 6 points this card, not only do you have to be your deployment zone, opponent's zone, and midfield. You have to do actions in all 3 zones. This is really hard to get 6 on. It's not that bad to get 3 on.
Yeah, and it's something that you have to survive. And that's
just survive.
Yeah, these complete at the end of your opponent's next turn. So getting that 6 is very hard. That's recover assets. Containment is the one that's a little bit easier. This is another one where you have to do up to 2 actions, and you have to do it with a unit that is within the 9 of a battlefield edge, holding the 9, and outside of your deployment zone. Those complete immediately, but you get 3 points for each edge you did. So if you're in a normal table quarters, you could step just outside of your deployment zone on each flank, do 2 actions, score 6 points.
Yeah.
That one's kind of easy.
That one's very easy for 6.
I like that one. But then recover assets, you have to have some units that are going to do actions in various places and survive.
Yeah, that's a very hard card to get 6 on. You're doing an action in your opponent's deployment zone and surviving. You basically have won the game at this point, or just winning harder.
Yeah, to get the 6.
To get the 6, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there is the upside that this one also completes at the end of the game. So if you happen to drop bottom of 5, you might just be okay.
What's your opinion on going fixed versus tactical? I know we've been doing a lot of tactical to feel it out, but what do you think is more valuable?
We haven't actually gone tactical yet. Actually, that was what I kind of want to talk about, like in the back half, because I think going fixed is a little bit different now than before. I actually do kind of want to like rant it a little bit because I still had some thoughts.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
No problem.
And that is that with the increase of actions and the fact that there's 2 realities of doing actions. One, OC 0 units no longer need apply. I personally have been affected by this as a Tyranny player, but other armies have as well. I know a lot of people used cheap things like Scarabs, Kroot Hounds, Fenrisian Wolves. All of those no longer do actions. As well, advancing and actioning is just gone. Yeah. It's a battle line rule in specifically one mission type. We don't know how frequently that's going to pop up, and it won't be every game, which means that you have to plan around doing actions without battle line that can advance. To me, this means that natively fast units are a lot more valuable for actions than before. Because as a Space Marine player, I used to use scouts for actions. You just go 6 in advance. Jump pack intercessors might be better now because they go 12 and just do an action.
Is that because you have to be in a more reactive spot depending on what you draw? Because scouts can start in specific spots.
Yeah, I think being reactive is just the way to do it. Now, there's never going to be a board position that's immune to a bad draw while the game is still in contention.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're dominating the board that hard, you're probably good. But I think just the key to getting around random card draws is to set yourself up as well as possible and trust that the card deck cannot screw you 5 times in a row.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as a Sisters player and just a tactical lover in general, I build lists with like random assortment of units that are just capable of doing an action should something arise, or being in a spot should something arise. Like, I'm generally near midfield. I want to have my half of the board locked down. And I have fast units that are in a position to go do something on my opponent's side of the field, should it be take an objective or get engaged in all fronts or do an action. And I find with that, very few cards are not scoreable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is the right approach. Now, obviously, your sisters will be changing because everything's going to be changing. But I think that for tactical, that's the right approach, is just trying to play to keep your options open if you're trying to score well. Because it very much feels like you have to score almost all of your cards to get a really high tactical score now, because so many more of them are worth 3 and 4 rather than 5.
And to that point as well, I find that if you're the type of army that often is okay at tactical and just kind of wins primary and makes up for it, and you're like you're not scoring a card to get a CP and you're scoring the other one, and that's kind of an ebb and flow for 5 points a turn, that's probably going to be worth 3 points a turn now, and you're going to end up with a garbage secondary score.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I've played that even recently with my Tyranids. I've had turns where I intentionally killed a scoreable secondary. Like, I drew Investigate Signals. My opponent's like, oh, you're going to get a 4 on that? I'm like, no, I'm getting 0. I'm getting a command point.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wow, you scored a 40 anyways. I'm like, yeah, that's what Tyranids do.
Yeah.
I think that's not on the table anymore.
That's not really a thing. And
that's very hard to do.
If you have an ability to make command points free or generate CP through your battle round that's somewhat reliable, I think that has gone up in stock a lot because you're pitching less cards to the CP factory.
Yeah, because some cards have that innate ability to get discarded written in them. Bring it down says you can discard it if your opponent doesn't have monsters and vehicles.
Yeah.
So there's less literal dead draws.
And not only that, John, but you have the 1 CP strat now to swap a card out is not once per game. So, in games which are stally, stalematey, or if your detachment has bad strats and you're just using CP rerolls anyway, like, ditch cards get a good secondary score. That's a real strategy.
Yeah, that's just a real thing. And if you need to cycle it, especially in the last couple turns, once you don't need a CP anymore, that's awesome. And so I think having the CP generation is a lot more valuable. I know personally I've already been trending in that direction, but like for my Space Marine builds, I am much more inclined to take Azrael and Calgar than before, which is kind of fake because I was already taking those characters. But now I'm very specifically locked into those chapters because I have access to them.
It's funny you say that. Like, I did not run Junith in my sister's army after like a gajillion reps with her and without her. And now she's strictly worse. She has to pass a leadership test or discard a miracle die to actually gain you a command point. But I think she's net better because of the way the game works now.
Yep. Also, you do have some new stratagems.
I do have some new strats, and I do value CP a little bit differently. That's fair.
Those are pretty good.
That might matter.
I think all of those, like even the Swarm God, I'm going to take a good look at. With any luck, if he goes down in points, then he'll become much more palatable. But even still, I might look at him again if that's just how the game is changing. And I want to be able to cycle the ones I can't score so that I'm speeding towards a high tactical score. Because I think a lot of people are going to struggle to do that.
Yeah.
I think tactical is harder to get the big scores on them before. It's not just, I'm just going to play Warhammer and keep scoring while I go.
I find games are closer in general, and I think that's a byproduct of primary basically going from 5 points to 4 points, and secondaries going from, I draw a card, it's worth 5, to I draw a card, it's worth 3 as an average. And with those two factors and the deck being more scoreable in general, you just end up with tighter games. So if you're playing in teams and you care about creating a large differential, that is going to become more challenging. And if you're playing in singles and your plan is to just win by ever so slightly a little bit, it is even harder.
Yeah, I can really see that being a thing. So I think that means just the tactical side of things, what it means for me, list building. I want more little stuff in my list that has OC, and where I'm looking at that for my personal armies is I really want to hit that high number of scouts and jump pack intercessors in my Space Marine lists, even in detachments that aren't necessarily geared towards those pieces. And I really want in Tyranids more cheap units like Lictors. Because I think Lictors being lone operatives means I can stage them a little bit better than other things. They're very disposable. They have an OC characteristic, and they're not going to get blown away just for being casually placed somewhere.
Yeah. I know as a Sisters player with the current points, I have like cheap shit out the wazoo, and I'm just all about that. But with all of my factions, even my more elite ones, I'm really trying to work in things like more 5-man Legionnaires. Rhinos, I think, are really good at just doing actions. Like they can sabotage a terrain piece is another secondary that requires you to survive. And touch a terrain piece, you're probably able to be shot at. So having something moderately durable, unattractive to shoot like an empty Rhino, scoring you 3 secondary points, that can be really good too.
Yeah, and a lot of these ones, because they complete through your opponent's turn, if you can ever pull it off with a lone operative, that becomes a lot more of a... Because a Rhino, when you do it in action, it's not can you kill this? most people can kill a rhino. Is it worth your time to kill it?
Yeah.
If you go out of your way to kill this rhino, are you sparing a castigator?
Right.
That's a real problematic choice.
An empty rhino in the backfield is not a full rhino with 10 arcoflagellants coming at you.
Yeah, like which rhino are you going to kill?
Yeah. I'll let you score 3. That's the idea.
That's how it works.
And that's the concept, right? Like, just to get back on a big picture here, like, you're trying to give your opponent 2 bad choices a lot of the time, or multiple bad choices. In that case, that's a good example of shoot the thing that's going to kill you, or shoot the thing that's going to score.
Yeah. But a lone operative might take that choice away.
Right.
If I just have a lictor and I draw sabotage, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit behind this wall while tagging a terrain feature and sabotage it. I mean, what are you going to do about a lictor behind a wall barely outside of no man's land?
I think having infantry in general, lone op's even better, but having like infantry that are specifically short enough to hide behind whatever ruin that is probably first floor line of sight blocking in a lot of places, that's important. Like, if you're playing only tanks or like guys with their spear tips up custodes, that can get painful.
Yeah, just having something that can weather the storm and just not be an available target.
Yeah.
So those are like kind of the 2 directions. I actually think that the for Space Marines, the combi weapon lieutenant, who is a lone operative with a reactive move, is a little more valuable now than he was before. He wasn't making many lists before, but now it's just like I want one lone operative to hold down the button. That's honestly pretty valuable.
Yeah, I would say lone op has gone up, and it just things that can do actions and survive and are maneuverable enough that they can actually get to the places you want to be, right? Because like, there's no point in taking like some idiot 5-man squad that's here to do actions and deploying it in the open, having it obliterated turn 1. It's got to be able to actually navigate the table, hide terrain bounce, use transports, or use lone op, something like that. And I think that's why you're valuing your jump pack intercessors. They're not only 12-inch reactively fast to go get the card over there, but also they can go from staging point 1 to staging point 2 safely.
Yeah, that's a big deal, I think. And so I really want to have those units, that's why they're on my paint desk right now, in all my Space Marine lists.
Yeah, I really, that's in my sister's list. I run 3x5 Seraphim Zephyr typically, and that's the same idea. Like, they're trash that not only can score points that are out of reach of others, but they can get to those points effectively.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, so that's how I'm thinking of trying to build that in. And as well, because we've got a couple of mission rules that mention battle line and some of the secret missions that mention battle line, I think we're all in agreement that one battle line is something that you want. I don't think you have to go super hard on battle line.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's like viable strategies you can fall into if your army's identity is already tied to battle line. Like for Genestealer Cult, for example, I think you can make a pretty decent battle line centric army that can often take advantage of the fact that people skimp on battle line and then try to get a good secret agenda plan with the kill all their battle line and get behind them strategy. That's very niche, right? But I think you want to not be vulnerable to that and take enough battle line that you are not.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think everyone has to go into it hard. I know, like, I've already gotten some questions like, how many intercessor squads do you need in a Space Marine list? Maybe 1.
Yeah, like 1.
Maybe 1.
Right.
I like having just 1 escorting a character around. It is not a frontline unit. It's not an aggressive unit. It's going to chill around for 2 battle rounds. It's going to be alive on battle round 3. And if at the end of battle round 3, I see my opponent take a secret agenda, I'm going to take a real critical look at the table and say, all right, is my opponent going to try to kill this battle line unit? Is it important for them to do so? Are they threatening battle line? And if they're not threatening battle line into my deployment zone at all, then I'll move on with my life. Yeah. But also just having the battle line might make them not take the secret agenda, and then I have to stop thinking about it.
I will say there are armies like Hypercrypt, right, who can just up and down 3-inch away battle line into your deployment zone. And if you're skimping battle line and you play against someone who just has that as a pocket in their toolbox, that's going to happen to you.
Yep.
So it's difficult because you don't want to just take 5 intercessors and then have them just get shot off the field. But I think it's on you as the player to recognize those situations, like maybe put them in strat reserve, walk them out on turn 3 in some place they will not get interacted with, and just have them be a unit to deny the secret agenda.
Yeah, makes your opponent now have to use one of their Hypercrypt drops to try to clear your battle line, which if you make them use a 3-inch drop to get that, then they don't have the 3-inch drop to get into your deployment zone.
Yeah.
I think there will be counterplay, and as we play more, I expect we'll see more of it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see the mission pack to decide how much battle line I want.
I don't think there's much value to go hard.
I don't think there is much. Even if most of the missions are battle line can advance in action, most of my armies, the battle line either does or doesn't justify itself. And if a battle line doesn't justify itself, I don't think sometimes you're using the mission rule is going to swing my vote. Because I just can't imagine that the battle line specific mission rules are so common that I'm going to make my list otherwise worse to account for it. Because there will be games where I can't use those rules.
Yeah. I definitely think if you have, like in my sisters list as an example, I have a nice package of 10 battle sisters, which I can combat squad with an emulator, and I have 2 battle line units that I can put in different places. One's transport protected. That is not inconvenient for me, and it really solves the battle line conundrum and makes Hypercrypt have to think twice about taking that. And I think that's a sweet spot if you have something like that.
I think so.
And not out of the way battle line package would be nice.
Yeah, and not every army has that, but almost every army does.
Yeah.
I don't think any orc list is mad about taking 10 or 20 orc boys.
No. And I think a lot of lists could exist, and you're like, I don't take battle line units. But like most battle line units also serve as a backfield objective holder or an easy deploy homers or whatever, Cat Locust establisher now. And that's a good job. Like, that's a job that someone has to do. So if you can just 2 birds, 1 stone this, that's worth doing.
Yep. Yeah. And for the tactical cards that aren't fixed, I think we've basically covered all of them except for Marked for Death. And I'm just going to mention Marked for Death as being what it is. I think this is the most dead draw card in the deck.
Yeah. So basically the way Marked for Death works is you select... When you draw it, your opponent picks 3 units in their army, much like they used to pick 1 unit for 1 objective for tempting target. And then you get 5 points per unit you kill of those 3 units. And what I've done in all of my games is like this unit behind a wall in the corner, this unit behind a different wall in a different corner, and like triumph behind a wall. And like nothing happens. They just dead draw that crap.
Yep. And late game, you could draw this card, and then your opponent doesn't have enough units left to pick 3 safe ones. But if it's early game and they just have 3 safe units, it's just like, oh, then this doesn't work.
I don't plan on scoring this card. If I can, it's nice. I don't really let it go out of my way to score it in most cases. Like, if it was something I already wanted to kill and my opponent somehow selected that and it's in my path, I'll go kill it. But realistically, they're either going to pick things you cannot do or things that are traps for you to do if they're skilled opponents. And you just shouldn't really count on that.
That's the thing. I think this is a card you don't build for.
Yeah,
this card exists.
This card exists. You don't think about it. And
if it's important, I'll spend a CP to get rid of it. Otherwise, no. Other than that, though, it's all cards that we had before, and then Sabotage and Containment. And both Sabotage and Containment make me want to have something something free that's not going to get shot up. And I think Transports and Lone Ops are great candidates for that.
Yeah. I really like Solo Pennant and Engines of My Sisters for a variety of reasons. I think they're also great at this stuff.
Yeah.
If you have small things and like in the 60 to 80 point range that can just move quickly and are kind of tough to kill, that's ideal for this stuff.
Yeah, like it's not like it's impossible to kill a Penitent Engine, but me getting to a Penitent Engine behind a wall is an insane amount of effort.
Yeah.
And likely requires resources I'm not going to be happy about losing.
Yeah. So it's just not worth it, which means you can score it.
Yep. Now, there are 9 other cards. It's an even fix. There are 9 tactical cards that are tactical and 9 tactical cards that could be fixed. Even though, of course, they can also be tactical. A lot of these are the ones you remember. Storm Hostile is the exact same as before. But Bring It Down is different. And Bring It Down, I think, just opens up more play for you in list construction. You don't plan around scoring Bring It Down. You plan around your opponent not scoring Bring It Down. It's so much easier to deny points now.
Basically, the way Bring It Down works is you score 2 points for killing a vehicle unit, not a vehicle model. And then if it has 15 or more wounds total between all the models in that unit, usually just 1, then you get an extra 2 points. And if it's at above 20, then you get an extra 2 points on top of that for 6. But this 2 points per for like rhinos, immolators, that's 10 to 12 wounders that are so common, that doesn't add up quick. Like, you kill 5 of those and you get a 10. That's a ludicrous amount of actual vehicle death for 10.
There's several armies I can think of off the back of my hand that really like this change. Tau, Admech, Chaos Knights.
Sisters
too. And you see things where, like, I think 2 Piranhas is 14 wounds.
Yeah.
That's 2 points on Bring It Down.
Yeah.
3 Piranhas is 21 wounds. That's 6 points on Bring It Down.
Yeah.
So I expect to see a lot of 2 strong units of 7 wound vehicles.
Yeah, and I think even things like crisis units, which you might run like a full squad of crisis units with shield drones and whatever, and it's like the effort to kill it to the model is so much different to the effort to kill one model. You know, like you don't get any points unless you table the whole unit.
And it's 2 points for killing a 3 strong crisis unit. 2 points.
It's just 2. That unit used to be 6.
Yeah.
Plus 1 for tactical.
Yeah, it used to be, if you killed the whole unit, you got 8 points.
And similar, like this applies to all vehicle units, right? So kilocans, this is a big change for orcs with the mech buggy workshop or whatever it is. Yep. Paragon war suits and mortifiers, pensions is where my head goes.
All the vehicle squadrons no longer feel like they bleed points. And so I think fixed bring it down is no longer going to be nearly as good of a plan as it often was.
Yeah, I don't think you really take this. I think
very rarely.
Yeah, like it would have to be
Chaos Knights. You have to kill 10 dogs to max bring it down.
That's basically
killing
saying I'm gonna like
5 or 6 is just like 10 to 12 points. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll let you get that, and we'll keep playing.
It's not a bad pick in the Chaos Knights in the fact that if your natural strategy is just kill a bunch of knights, you're probably going to score decently.
Yeah.
But it's still like not. You can build lots of vehicles.
Bring it down is now sometimes good into knight armies.
But here's the other one I want to talk about, John. It kind of couples with bring it down. Mm-hmm. Let's go straight to Established Locus.
Yes, Established Locus.
This is the new homers. Mm-hmm. It's basically the same as before. You can get within 6 of center and do an action, or you can get within your opponent's deployment zone do an action. It's worth 2 points or 4 points, respectively. So everyone knows the nerdling trick. You just put 3 nerdlings in the corner pocket of the center ruin, and it's behind the wall, and it's unchargeable, and there's 3 nerdlings doing homers for 3, 3, mm-hmm. 3, 3, and then rhinos do it, and you just get a 15 without trying. That's a 10 without trying, and bring it down's harder. So the whole strategy of Fix was like take deploy homers and whatever kill one is reasonable. And now the kill one is not rewarding, and Established Locus is work hard for a 10.
So I think Established Locus has been replaced with a different fixed card if you want a fixed. I think Recover Assets is actually a good fixed card.
That's the one where you do the different zones and you have to survive.
Exactly. But here's the thought process. You get 3 points per turn. Mm-hmm. So instead of having to have a nurgling unit do it in 6 the center, I have to have a lone operative who is literally 0.01 inches from my deployment zone do the action. Mm-hmm. And then I have to have the unit that is parked on my home objective do the action.
That's really easy.
And that's
free.
That's free. I feel like I can just get 3 points to recover assets if I have a lone operative and a modicum of screening.
Yeah.
And the foresight to know where my opponent is pushing. I feel like scoring that 3 is very easy. But when you get the bonus point that you used to get for deploy teleport homer for pushing your opponent's zone, and that was worth 4. If you get your opponent's zone, it's worth 6.
Yeah.
So if I go 3, 3, 3, 3, 6, that's 18.
That's 18.
If I can hit your home
that's a
field
reasonable path.
Bottom of 5.
Yeah.
If I just go second, you can't stop the end game one.
You just have to have enough units.
I just have to have a unit to get in there.
Yeah.
If I can do that, that's 18.
Mm-hmm. If you're playing an army with lots of units that have like speed like that, that's a really good speed and loan up is what you're looking for.
Speed and loan ups, yeah. Just redeploying.
That's less
things.
about the rhino, I would say, and more about like just like small things that can hide and loan up.
Yeah.
Like Eldar would love that plan.
Yeah, Eldar, you can find loan ops. You can make it work.
Yeah.
Turn 5, if you're going second. If you're going first, you try to push the pace.
Because there's no distance from your deployment zone. You're one step out of your deployment zone on the far side of the corner where like no one will ever bother your loan op.
I can have 2 lictors base each other and each recover assets.
Yeah.
They just are based on the line.
Yeah.
And that is in the far corner of Search and Destroy. What do you do? Like, you're never getting there. That's fake. You're not getting to me.
That's 3 points forever.
That's 3 points forever. That's my 15 locked in, and it's less risky than old teleport armors used to be.
So I think Assassinate is largely the same, and that along with Recover Assets is definitely a viable kill and action plan.
Assassinate's the same. Cleanse is the same.
Yeah.
Engage is the same.
Engage is better. Engage is easier. Engage is straight up easier. So now you don't have to just not be within 6 inches of the center of the board, but you can now be within basically just past the line into a corner, which is, it's only...
that's where the lictor has to stand.
It's where the lictor stands. He's also engaging.
Done.
No, it's not that rewarding to do 2 quarters. Three quarters for 2 points is not that rewarding, but 4 points for 4 quarters is pretty rewarding. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to get. it's really easy to go 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4 on repeat and not get into your opponent's quarter. And that ends up in like a 6 to an 8 for the first 3-4 turns. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and I think behind enemy lines is the same, with the caveat that behind enemy lines does now get a little easier because the deployments are bigger.
Yeah, that's true. The deployment zones, that's a whole other thing we haven't even touched on, John. The new deployment zones, tipping point, and I forget the other one, but
it's actually still called sweeping engagement.
Oh, sweeping engagement.
Yeah,
that's
it's
right.
new, but it's not.
They let you start so close to each other. Like, if you want to
charge my deployments on turn 1,
charge your deployments on turn 1, you just can. You really just watch a stream.
The Sisters player.
Yeah. You know, not every army can, but if
you can.
World leaders can do it, Sisters can do it, CSM can do it.
There's quite a few.
There's Tyranids can do it. You know, like armies can do this.
Kinda,
yeah. It's you start close to each other. And I think in list construction, even for shooting armies, having a combat deterrent like sitting in a transporter already pre-staged at the edge of your deployment zone in a layered protection type of thing of some sort of screen, that is super powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I know Arcoflagellants got nerfed and stuff, but even in the not Penitent Host attachment, I'm fully planning on trying to incorporate some sort of combat element to sit in a Rhino and just be in that spot.
Yeah, there's so many. I think that a lot of these missions and secondaries involve get out of your deployment zone, do a thing. Primary is worth a little bit less. That means if people are back, they're scoring a little bit less, and so getting more objectives is more important. I think brawling in the center is better than ever. Because you're closer, and I think the missions are generally encouraging you to go fight a little bit more.
Yeah, there is not much reward to like go second, bottom of turn BS. I mean, that's what the secret missions can try to help with, but they, outside of the kill your opponent's battle line and then get your battle line over there, they're really unreliable. Like, table your opponent is table your opponent. You know, if you're on track to do it, you can think about it.
Go second and hold all 3 objectives makes me think that if you can do that, you shouldn't take the secret agenda.
Well, I could see that actually being good as what it is, you know, right? Like you're going second and you're getting dominated on primary early, you're tabling your opponent. Like, that is a real thing that happens.
If I'm going second against orcs with guard and it's like 0 primary, 5 primary, 15 primary, then that's good there.
Because then you get the 15 primary on bottom 5, because you still score your primary, which is a big deal. Because like you can get dominated on primary, get a bottom of turn 15, and then get a bottom of turn 20 also.
Oh, 35 primary.
35 primary for literally just walking onto objectives on bottom of 5 is a real thing.
I do like that.
Like, you don't really have to pay much attention to primary if you have bottom and you know you can pull that off.
Yeah, I think that's Unbroken Wall, the secret agenda.
Yeah.
That one, I feel like if it's in front of you, you do it. And if it's not, you don't. And you just have to read the table. And I think if you're going second, it's a lot better.
Secret agendas are not plan A. I mean, that...
Obviously.
They really, right. Then I think they actually hit the nail on the head for it. Not to like shill for them. I could take it or leave it, but I do think it's a good mechanic, genuinely.
It's doing what it's intended to do, whereas it felt like Gambits kind of missed the intended goal. I haven't decided if I like these or not, but it does feel like it does what it says on the tin. Whereas Gambits was like, doesn't even do what I think it does.
Right. The Gambits is Gambits is gambling.
Yeah, what are we doing?
That this is, you can legitimately make the plan. I'm going to get pushed around, slowly but surely destroy my opponent's army enough that I can claim all the objectives turn 5 and bottom 35.
I haven't even failed a secret mission yet.
John, you play differently than me.
2-0. Yeah, very, very weird.
Where do you think you're landing in terms of what changes you're making?
I think my fixed plan now is almost certainly going to be recover assets, and then I think I'm going to plan on it being either an engage or behind enemy lines. I don't think you want to be doing too many actions at once, and because recover assets does require 2 actions at a minimum to score, maybe 3, I think I'm looking at taking a lot of cheap stuff, but then having options.
Yeah, I think my plan is still to just play tactical as plan A and just build a list that's good tactical. And that looks largely the same as before, but with those things that we talked about earlier, lone ops get better, rhinos get better, things that are fast and able to stage get better.
Tactical is my plan A, but actually this season, I want to try to focus on fixed more. I took tactical in 99% of my games that I played so far in 10th edition. even though fixed is valid and some people use it at tournaments and build lists around it, it's very successul, I just play tactical.
I find it more fun, personally.
I do as well.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to win, which, sometimes we do like to do, I think recover assets is very much like the new easy fixed one.
It is an easy
and if if I ever see, orcs with 7 characters, I'm going to take recover assets and assassinate. I'm going to put 2 lictors on this backside.
Yeah.
And we're going to crank out these points while I run around killing headhunting.
I think the people who completely don't care about assassinate, like here's my 1,000 Suns army with 17 psychers,
sure.
Something like that. That's where you can really consider the fixed plan. I do think you're absolutely right. Recover assets is the new.
That's the good one. That's the good one, I think.
Yeah. Established Locus is the new homers, but this ain't no 3-point.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
You could do both if you have a lot of trash and your opponent can't really deny it.
That really reminds me of doing like deploy and cleanse, and I personally hated committing to so many actions.
Yep.
And especially because there are primaries that also warrant doing actions sometimes, like Terraform wants you to do actions. I'm sure other ones do too.
I think the ritual still exists.
The ritual, right. So there's more actions tied to primary, and now there's more actions in secondaries. Like, you consider that when you're list building, and beyond that, don't overpromise how many you can do.
Yeah. But I like the fixed secondaries that have the good combination of passive scoring is actually pretty good, and you have the ability to gas pedal at the end if you're crushing someone.
Yeah.
That, I think for fixed, getting both of those is really crucial.
Yeah.
There will always be situations where behind enemy lines or engage is very easy to score points of, and so keeping that in mind for fixed is nice. I think for, and obviously I'm looking at this a little bit as a Tyranid player because obvious reasons. Even though OC0 units don't do actions, they still score behind enemy line and engage. And if
you would notice that,
it's important. I'm keeping my byword in my list. I don't really someone has to hold my home objective anyways.
I'm taking
someone has to do it anyways. Someone has to be there.
Yeah.
I don't really do sticky objectives in Tyranids. That's not somehow a thing we do. So
what about Tyranids make you think they're sticky?
I would think that we would consume the objectives and no longer need to hold them. But I genuinely think that Tyranids can do a better fixed plan now than they could before. And I know people were very like, oh, Tyranids just take fixed and maxed it. And that never was my experience, but I think they're better at it now than before.
Yeah. I generally think that you just want to have a real plan for which direction you want to go.
That's true.
And more actions tied to primary, tied to secondaries, less swing on points, less dead draws, but more things to do in your turns and less CP to be had by it are kind of my big takeaways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I'm feeling as well. So I think what I'm looking at when I'm writing lists, I want more CP generation. I want actual CP generation, not tactical cards. I have to rely on that less.
No,
I want more cheap scoring units of those C, and if I've got a lone op, I think I'm gonna try to fit it in the list.
Yeah. I've really been valuing the Sisters lone up a lot more highly too, for this reason.
Yeah, if you can if you can ever get a unit in the opponent's deployment zone and you just so a lot of cards just get significantly better.
Oh yeah, once you get into your opponent's deployment zone, you unlock all the points.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that feels very real because sometimes we've all seen it. Sometimes a skirmish unit breaks through on a flank and it hits a side corner of a deployment zone behind a wall, and it's not on an objective, but it's just there.
And it's just going to live there.
That can just be 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points in addition to what the card was already giving you.
Yeah, right. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to build lists, play games, and all that stuff. You think there's anything else we should talk about, John?
I think that's it for now. We'll likely go ahead and break down some of the missions once we know what the missions are. At the moment we're recording this, we don't know. But of course, Nick, I expect you're going to come back with one of your infamous mission series.
Yes, they're back. They're better than ever. And hopefully there's going to be a preset list of play this primary with this mission role, with this deployment. I found that very helpful in guiding us through all the random possibilities. And, depending on what Games Workshop does, when we have this list, if it exists, we will go through and break down every single mission combination that is recommended by GW in our weekly series that is so known and loved by all our War members.
Absolutely. I can't imagine that they won't give us a Pry Nexus back at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all for now then, folks. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you let us know what you think, not only of the Pry Nexus cards, but of us just doing a little bit of a different type of strategy session like this. Hopefully you enjoyed it, but we'll see you next time.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this episode. Hopefully, you enjoyed it, found it insightful, found it helpful as we broke down those missions and how we approach list building in the future. John and I had a great time in that discussion. Now, if you want to access more content just like this, you can check out the warroom.vhx.tv, where you can access the content for a 3-day free trial. You get access to all of our videos. We do 3 coaching matches per week, strategy sessions, 10-minute tips, the whole works. And we actually have a discount going on right now during this exciting time of Warhammer excitement. If you go to that website and you use the promo code AOW Nexus, you can get access to all of the content for 50% off of your first month. That is an amazing value. And if it's not for you, you can cancel. It's very easy, but I'm sure you're going to love it. If you enjoy podcasts about getting better at Warhammer and learning Warhammer, this stuff is so right up your alley. You get to get some insights from John, Jack, Siegs, the entire Art of War team, not just myself. And it is truly amazing material to help you learn the game and become your best. We will be back to our regularly scheduled 2-part series featuring event winners and people who do well at tournaments, as per usual, beginning next week. So do not go anywhere, and please, thank you so much for continuing your endless support for this show. We appreciate you so much.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. The Art of War 40K.com.